Do you have questions about whether you should have a writing coach or a developmental editor? Which is better for you? You've heard of basketball coaches and football coaches. What is a writing coach? In this video, I covered the differences between book coaches and developmental editors and how each provide a service that helps an author move forward. Authors sometimes fear they will get stuck when they write a book. You'll be horrified to know how many large numbers of unfinished books are collecting digital dust. Not only is this a waste of the author's time, but it's also a waste because of the opportunities to share knowledge with people who need it. If you're stuck or fear you might get stalled when you write a book, consider the value of a writing coach. Writing coaches help you improve your writing and guide you through the process of writing. They help not only book authors, but people who write courses, blogs, or do regular content updates on their websites. A writing coach can focus on where you need the most coaching. You'll be a good writer, or you will be when you sit down to write, but procrastination because of feeling blocked is a common problem for good writers. And a writing coach can get to the root of the problem. Why do you need a writing coach? Why not enlist the help of a persistent friend who will periodically say, "So, how are you coming with that book?" You might be thinking, my good friend will support me. But will they help you set goals and make sure you fulfill them? Asking them to do so is a good way to lose friends. It's too parental a role. However, you may pay a writing coach to keep you on track. They don't mind doing it. They have the knowledge to see how you're stuck and to give you ideas on how you can get around your obstacles. For example, an author told me she wanted to share her story of how she grew up and wanted to include some themes in the chapters. I suggested having some fictitious characters whose stories would unfold in the chapters. She could use them to develop her themes. She loved the idea. In the realm of overall support, a writing coach may also help you brainstorm ideas, keep you inspired, and raise your confidence with positive feedback. A writing coach can help you get unstuck, whether it's fear of starting, fear of competition, dread about negative reviews that may come down the road. If those things have gotten you frozen, a coach can help you get unstuck. Working with a writing coach also takes away the loss of objectivity that often accompanies a writer. You're churning out paper, you're churning out characters, and every few minutes you ask yourself if what you're writing is any good. And you have no idea. If this condition doesn't get addressed, it may lead to writer's block or joyless writing. In this situation, the writing coach can provide feedback on what you're writing. At no point in any of these situations does the writing coach actually write for you or edit your work. They might give you suggestions about how to improve your writing, but their main job is to keep you on track. They make sure you're writing, enjoying it, meeting your goals, and finishing your book. Let's switch the focus now to the role of the developmental editor. You don't pay a developmental editor to be nice. You pay them to tell the truth. Let's say your writing is zipping along. You're excited about what you're doing. You're happy with the flow of material. The developmental editor may agree with your assessment. Recognize that developmental editors are frank. If your book were a house, the developmental editor might tell you it's built on sand, or the construction materials are inferior, or any of a number of bad news stories. This is a true shoot the messenger scenario, and the developmental editor has your book's best future at heart. He or she wants you to make structural changes before the finished house or the book collapses. They practice preventive demolition. Practically speaking, the developmental editor wants to see your book in its early stages. A developmental editor won't tell you what your book should be. If you want to write about the history of your company, they won't recommend that you write about your favorite travels because travel books sell better. They will work to realize your vision for your book. Let's say you're in the early stages of your writing project and you're running into problems. Consider a developmental editor to lend structure or organization. For example, you want to share the lessons that you learned in building a business. Maybe you can't decide whether to have the lessons unfold within the context of telling your life story, writing an autobiography or memoir, or to tuck the autobiographical elements within the format of each lesson. A developmental editor can help you make these decisions and also break your information into individual elements so they can be best organized. This editor will point out irrelevant material or prose that loses its direction. They'll also point out some interesting elements that should be more strongly emphasized. As a developmental editor, I had a client who gave me a large number of blogs that she wanted turned into a book. I organized them into categories that put them into a beginning-to-end format. As a developmental editor, I didn't critique or change the writing. Since she also hired me as a copy editor, I did that later. In addition to working with you on a book in its earliest stages, developmental editors often also review first drafts. Early in your book's life cycle is a great time to hire one because you're not as committed to a specific format for a book. In this more fluid stage, they'll ask questions like, what does this mean? Or why did you put this story in chapter 8 instead of chapter 10? This character was named Jose in chapter 3, and now he's Juan. I recently read a novel in which the heroine began as an African American and ended up being white. You can probably assume that a developmental editor never saw this manuscript. You may not have enough compelling stories in your book. Stories don't belong only in fiction. Of course, nonfiction books desperately need stories to break up factual material that may not be as compelling. A developmental editor will say, what story can you insert here to make the point? Strengthening the foundation is essential. I know how I felt when I got blind reviews of my articles. Sometimes the comments sounded like they were way off target, and other times the feedback helped me tighten or expand my written material. I've worked with individuals who have not been willing to accept any changes. If you feel like you're bridling when you talk to your developmental editor, you're facing an issue that can affect your book. Unless the editor has a genuinely annoying personality, in which case they may need some coaching themselves, or the two of you aren't a good match, consider that you might be overreacting. At times like this, the best thing to say to yourself is, what matters more, my ego or writing a good book? Here's what developmental editors don't do. They don't focus on word choices, grammar, and punctuation. They also don't do writing or rewriting. You might say their view is macroscopic rather than microscopic. This process is organizational. Maybe the most valuable service they provide is to view your book from the viewpoint of a reader. Which do you need? If you write somewhere along the range of competent to very good, but you have phases of discouragement or writer's block or general inertia, you will probably benefit most from having a writing coach. If you're at the early stage of your book or you have finished a first draft and feel the material is disorganized or suspect that the manuscript has a lot of problems that you don't have the skill or experience to identify, call in a developmental editor. I'm happy to assist you with your book. Reach me through my website at patiyer.com/contact. And let's have a chat about what you need. Perhaps you need a ghostwriter. Watch my next video to find out what this person does for an author. You can entirely skip writing your book when you work with this kind of editor. And if you need a developmental editor or a book coach, please check out that contact form and let's talk.